female lead tells women's stories. Remarkable, diverse, inspiring. An educational charity promoting positive female role models who show the many different routes to success and fulfillment.
So often I hear people saying, oh, how do I get started? How do I do this? How do you do it? You just start. You have to begin. And it won't be perfect and it'll be messy and it'll be hard, but you're doing something and you're on your way.
Empowering future generations of women through films and a book of 60 women donated to 18,000 schools in the UK and USA, reaching millions of young people. And through our female lead societies, we help girls to discover new role models that speak to their passions, ambitions and careers. Through our research into social media and mental health, we found a solution to the negative impact of social media on teen girls. Through a simple intervention which encouraged girls to follow different influencers, we were able to change their entire social media experience and sense of well-being. We called this campaign Disrupt Your Feed, and it reached 20 million people on social, with 330 million impressions all over the globe. So what's next? As well as inspiring girls, we're now finding ways to measurably improve the lives of older women through data, research, and the stories of those who have overcome challenges and found their own personal versions of success. We're a long way from being finished. Join us in our mission.
Are we going to talk about women's rights again? Yes, we're going to talk about it until there's balance.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Female Lead LinkedIn Live. We are going to be talking today about how confidence works. We're going to talk with the wonderful Professor Ian Robertson. He has spoken to us before, and for those of you who haven't yet seen part one of this conversation, I'd really encourage you to have a look. I'm Edwina Dunn. I'm founder of the Female Lead, and I hope you're going to join in this session and ask some questions at the end of our conversation. But I'm very lucky because I get to ask the first set of questions. So Ian, welcome. It's a pleasure to be back.
It's great to be back.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was great feedback for the last one, so thank you.
Well, I learned a lot, and I remember you told us about four key elements that help grow confidence. We discussed competence, we discussed competition, we discussed collective confidence and committed action. And it was fascinating. So for those who haven't yet caught up, that's the one to look at first. So this time round, we're going to explore some of your new ideas, your new writings, and we're going to learn together about how we can strengthen our confidence. I captured, because you helped me, 3 key headlines. The first is coping with sabotage. The second is confirming values. And the third is all about controlling anxiety. And honestly, if there was ever a time we need to talk about controlling anxiety, I think it's now. So we are delighted to hear and learn from you. So Ian, if I may, let's turn straight to that first one. And I wonder if you could perhaps set the scene with this sort of key element of coping with sabotage. What is it? How does it happen?
Thank you, Edwina. So let me tell you a little story about when I started writing what I was originally supposed to be one chapter in the book on sex and confidence, sex differences and confidence. That expanded into 2 big chapters. And I gave them to a colleague of my wife's who's a very strong feminist to read. And she came back waving her finger because I'd started off in talking about what she saw as being kind of locating the problem of what was perceived, what the lower levels of confidence, or put it this way, the lower levels of overconfidence in women compared to men. And some of the issues of stereotyping. But she felt I was doing the classic thing of blaming the victim, of locating this as some kind of pathology in the minds of women compared to men.
In other words, trying to fix women.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Which is not, which of course, me being a man and a privileged man, of course, I'm victim to that kind of approach. And so the second chapter had all been about the structural things that, the external things that make it perfectly understandable why women should have less confidence, why they should be have less appetite for competition, etc. And so I started off with, I reversed the order of the 2 chapters and started off with the fact, for example, that in one study, big study of thousands of people in the USA, the psychological well-being of the man in a marriage increased steadily as the wife's proportion of the joint income rose from 0 to 40% of the joint income, but then declined when it went above 40%, until if she was earning 100% of the income, his psychological well-being was as low as it would have been had she been earning nothing. So, and then there's all the big studies that high-achieving women find that if they are in a marriage or a partnership, they have to dampen down their own career ambitions. They have to do a higher proportion of the work in the home. They find it harder to find partners because of, in men, there is this deep-seated, it's probably not biologically determined, probably culturally determined, this deep-seated need to feel dominant and feel in charge. And of course, money these days is a huge, and status in a job is a huge factor in this. And so, and also, my wife has worked in, she's a fantastic clinical psychologist, Fiona O'Doherty, and she has worked in industry a lot, and she's worked with so many high-achieving women who are outstripping their partners, and fondly believe the relationship is going really well, and then suddenly the partner goes off. Maybe that partner's career is not thriving. So that's a kind of depressing picture. The good news is that if a relationship starts with the understanding that the woman may well be earning more, hopefully more a millennial relationship, hopefully a more enlightened younger men than old, badly programmed men like me, hopefully that that this will be less of an obstacle. But it's still there in the 30-somethings, who suddenly find that the relationship they thought was really steady, and then they don't understand why it breaks up. But it's the discomfort of men at not being dominant. So that's one example of the kind of structural sabotage. Not deliberate. Well, in some cases it is, but largely unconscious.
It's societal, isn't it? I mean, it's just that preconditioning.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that you talk about is how important it is to have people around you, in your group, in your network, who actually reinforce, the things that you stand for, the things that, that enhance your self-image, because self-image is a critical part of confidence, isn't it?
Absolutely. And women, on average, there are many exceptions, there's how they represent themselves in their brains is more connected with their relationships. That's in Western countries than men, who have a much more individualized self-concept. And so that makes it easier for them to ruthlessly compete and ruthlessly dominate. But women are playing by different rules. We talked about this in the last time about competition. They're playing by different rules because when they ruthlessly dominate, they're actually competing against themselves in terms of how they represent themselves. And so it's incredibly important, given how women make better friends to each other than men on average make better friends, it's really important to do an audit of your relationships and just say, look, is my confidence, am I mixing with people who are enhancing my confidence, or am I mixing with people who are subtly undermining my confidence? They may not even realize they're doing it. But just think about it. Are people being actually uncomfortable with my success, for instance? Are people trying to kind of snipe at me if I'm successful in some domain? So, and I'm not saying you should eliminate people who are doing that, but you need to be aware of it and make sure they don't eat into your soul. Get them out of your soul.
I really love this point, because actually one of the campaigns that we ran, Disrupt Your Feed, is about following people on social who make you feel that you can do things and that, where you're mimicking real life, as opposed to the kind of airbrush lives that appear on social, which make you feel quite often less. So this is the first time I've heard this really clearly in the context of building your confidence really means having to let go some people who actually always make you feel less, and who actually are the ones who say, of course you can, of course you should, you're clever, you're smart, you're lovely, or whatever those words are that matter to you.
Yeah. And to be aware, if you have a boss or a colleague or a partner who diminishes you in some way, consciously or unconsciously, it's being aware of that and not internalizing that, realizing this is a need in them, this is satisfying a need in them, and it doesn't bear on, it's not about you. And that's why it's so important to then, when we come to talk about values, about really finding yourself and defining, grounding yourself in your values.
And we're going to come on to that in just a second. But one of the things that you said that I really liked is, feel compassion for yourself, even with your imperfections.
Yes.
And I like this because, of course, no one is perfect or can be perfect. So it is about the fact that, you are you because of the things you're good at and the things that you're not very good at.
Absolutely. Every single human being is absolutely unique, mathematically speaking. You're a mathematician, you know this, that if you combine the 30,000 genes with the several trillion experiences we have in life, and the 80 billion neurons with more patterns of connections in the brain than there are atoms in the universe, then what you find is every single person is totally and utterly unique. There was no one like you. And that makes you an incredibly precious phenomenon in the universe. And yes, you will have done bad things. Yes, you will have done things you prefer not to, but we all have. And you have to, the great psychoanalyst Erich Fromm, who survived the concentration camps in the Second World War, he said, you know, to love others, you have to love yourself. Yeah. And that's not narcissism. You have to love yourself. You have to feel compassion for yourself before you can feel compassion for other people. Oh. And accept your failures, accept them, and embed, you know, see yourself in the round, and don't allow yourself to feel diminished or undercut by other people.
I love that. And honestly, those words could be all the words that we need to hear and remember. They're beautiful, and it's such a great way to think about life and ourselves. But I'm going to then move on to your other wisdom, which is confirming values. So, you know, confirming values, I'm thinking from my perspective, is all about what do we stand for? Is that right?
Yeah.
And why
right.
are they important to confidence?
Well, let's think about self-esteem. You know, our evaluation of ourselves. What is it, and why do we fight so much to feel good about ourselves? Most of us, some of us, give up that battle and don't feel good about ourselves. And generally, it's about the base of that is the need to feel good. Need to feel that you're good. Even terrible criminals, murderers, you know, some of the people running Nazi concentration camps, extermination camps, believe themselves good, listen to classical music at home, were very kind to their children, believe themselves to be a good father or a good mother. Yeah. So we have this need to feel good. And that's an important and fundamental it's the foundation of our self-esteem. And, you know, when someone criticizes us, or when we're made to feel imperfect or failing in some dimension, whether it's looks or performance or friendship or whatever, it's very easy for us to feel really bad because our self-evaluation goes down, and that makes our mood go down. So there's a very simple exercise called self-affirmation that's been, you know, developed, where you just, particularly when you're feeling threatened in that kind of way, you just take a few moments, just write down what you stand for. What are you? Are you an honest? You know, I'm an honest person, or I'm a loyal friend, or, you know, I'm a religious person. I believe in good. You know, whatever, it can be any domain of values, but just to bring it to mind, because otherwise it's buried, not access to your conscious mind. And by forcing yourself to write it down or articulate it verbally, the evidence is that your brain responds very differently after that to threats to your ego, to threats to your self-esteem that come from a critical boss or a sniping colleague or an undercutting partner. You know, I am who I am. You know, I am unique and I am beautiful in the universe because I'm the only one of its kind in the universe. And I am good. And here's why I'm good. I'm a loyal friend. I persist. I've gone through terribly hard times and I've kept on going in spite of that. Whatever the values are, just bringing them to mind changes your memory system, changes your attention system, and makes you more robust and able to withstand the things otherwise that cut away and corrode your ego and cause your body to generate cortisol, the stress hormone, which if it keeps on coming repeatedly and all the time can cause, it's not good for us physically or not good for our brains. So reaffirming our values, what we stand for, as you say, is one of the most important protectors against undermining self-esteem, and therefore allowing you to be confident, because it's not just about you, it is about you standing for your values, which are eternal and long-lasting, and not just your ego. Yeah.
I feel that we should almost stick them up on a mirror so that when we look at ourselves in the morning, we remember this is who we are, this is what we stand for.
Exactly.
It would be such a simple thing and hopefully really empowering. And I'm always interested in mirrors and what people see when they look in the mirror. That's for another time. I'd love to talk to you about that, Ian. I really would.
Yeah.
So we have to move on to your third wisdom, insight, which is hugely important, controlling anxiety. How do we control anxiety? How can we use it as a positive force in our lives? Because it can be all-consuming and really quite destructive. What is your thought on that?
Yes, and particularly so for women compared to men.
Yeah.
Women, particularly as from age 12 or 13, become more prone to anxiety, and it's not. I don't believe it's mainly biological. It's mainly cultural. It's because of all the incredible pressures that the women have to navigate, and the relative powerlessness they have. So having power, that is being able to have control over the world, including other people, is one of the greatest antidotes to anxiety. Why? Because power activates the same brain reward network that cocaine does. It gives you a boost of dopamine activity, which lifts your mood, and that reduces your anxiety and it boosts your motivation.
We're not promoting cocaine, though, just to be clear.
No, we're not promoting cocaine. I've never taken the stuff. But power has similar effects to it and can be similarly addictive. But small amounts of power are like the most beautiful, natural, side effect-free, non-addictive drug, beneficial drug. Right. And that power includes the power, the sense of control you have over yourself. Okay, and so to the extent that you can navigate the sabotage that might be happening in your life, to the extent that you feel that you can name it and understand it and maybe push away the saboteurs a bit, that will give you a sense of control and a sense of power. Mm. So it's important to realize that taking action that we talked about last time is a very great antidote or a great way of breaking through the anxiety. Because what anxiety does is it holds you back from taking action because it activates all the avoidance systems in the brain. So anxious people do less stuff. If you do less stuff, you have less opportunity for reward. If you have less opportunity for rewarding success, you'll have less control. If you have less control, you'll feel of less power. That will cause you to have more anxiety. So it's about gradually defining an area of your life where you can exert control and making sure that you take action in spite of the anxiety. Because one of the greatest sources of confidence is doing stuff in spite of the anxiety.
Right.
Okay. So how do you do that? Well, the second thing is trying to realize that you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotions. And if you can get a little bit of space between you and your anxiety, if you can just, and many mindfulness techniques teach this, if you can just observe yourself and almost name the symptoms. Oh yeah, I feel my heart going. Yeah, that's me feeling anxious. Oh yeah, I see I'm having anxious thoughts now. Oh, I see myself thinking, oh, everybody's looking at me. I wonder if they really are looking at me. So to the extent that you can get a little bit of distance from both the thoughts and the physical symptoms of anxiety, that also can give you a little bit of opportunity to exert control. And to the extent you can exert control, will bring these things.
I find this fascinating because I remember saying before I met you and before you'd explained this to me so clearly and brilliantly, like I was waiting for an event. I couldn't work out whether I was worried or excited. I mean, I'm still old-fashioned. I use the word worried more than anxious. And you have said, and I find it utterly brilliant, that the feelings of anxiety and excitement are almost the same. And actually, you can tune your brain to almost turning anxiety, if you call it excitement, into something positive rather than negative.
That's absolutely correct, Edwina, because actually we all know about the fight or flight system in the brain and body, the adrenaline, the pumping heart, the sweaty skin, the dry mouth, the churning stomach. But these are all general symptoms of arousal, of what's called the fight or flight system. But there's both fight and flight. There's both approaching and tackling this challenge head on. So it only becomes either fear or worry or excitement by the label that we put on it, by what we call it.
Amazing. Amazing.
And if we can just, even there's evidence that even just saying, and before you're about to do something very anxiety provoking, have a difficult conversation or a difficult presentation, if you just say to yourself, I feel excited, the evidence is you perform better. And if you perform better, you will feel less anxious. You will feel better about that.
Incredible. Honestly, I could talk to you about all of this for so long, but we have to have our questions because our audience are out there and they've got questions to ask you. So please do send those through. Can I just remind everybody that Ian has a fabulous book that you can get hold of and you can read all of this in your own time, and you can absorb it in your own way. And I learned so much. I've learned more hearing Ian explain it in these 2 sessions, and I hope it's opened your eyes and maybe your thoughts to what it might mean to you in building confidence. So do have a look at that. And now I have to invite the audience to ask you some questions. Here we go. If I work on my confidence, what positive changes will I start to see in my life? That's a nice one.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, the secret sauce of confidence is that it makes you more likely to take action. So if you feel confident that you can do X, then you're more likely to actually do X, because confidence lifts your mood, reduces your anxiety, and increases your motivation. So it's this link to action that distinguishes it from self-esteem or optimism. So it depends what you want to see change in your life. If your goal is to retrain, change your career, then there's no doubt about it. If you feel confident about the academic or other activities you will have to do that, then you'll be more likely to achieve that goal. So it depends entirely in the area, because confidence tends to be specific to specific domains. So you can be confident socially, but not confident academically. You can be confident in sport, but not confident in social life. So it's confidence is linked to action as its secret sauce. So it depends what actions you want to take.
Fantastic. Well, mine would never be confidence in sports, I can tell you that. But anyway, each to our own, right? So next question, can faking confidence to other people help me to become confident on the inside?
To some extent, yes. To some extent, yes. So most apparently very confident people, or many of them, are actually got a healthy degree of self-doubt inside. It's not healthy to be completely 100% confident. You always need to have a bit of self-awareness, a bit of self-criticism. Men have less of that faculty on average than women. However, confidence is partly a series of habits and beliefs. And including in these habits, for instance, is our whole demeanor. So there was some research that has not been replicated that suggested that power posing, that holding oneself really, a stride and like this, that increased your confidence and made you feel good. That research has not been borne out in many different studies. However, what has been borne out in a review study is that actually making yourself small depletes your confidence. And you look in any meeting you're in or any gathering where there's a range of status people there, or maybe, that status may be occupational, but it can also be in terms of personal profile in a social. Some people will make themselves small. That's a primitive submission signal, okay? Now that making yourself small communicates itself to your brain and tends to activate the avoidance network, because this is a kind of freezing avoidance sign. So actually standing tall, so it's a bit like your values. If you can stand proud, I am me, I am this unique specimen of humanity, I'm not going to diminish myself. I'm going to stand tall or sit tall, not in an exaggerated way. At least then you will be avoiding the negatives of making yourself sound. So that's one thing. The second thing is saying it. Try and avoid the self-protective undercutting. Oh, I'm probably talking rubbish. Oh, don't listen to me. Oh, I don't know anything about this stuff. Say, I believe that, or I think that. Okay? Yes. Try and avoid the habits, the undercutting habits of self-deprecating, self-protective, or don't criticize me.
Diminishing language, yes.
Diminishing language, yeah. So it's these things of posture and diminishing language. It's as much not doing the things that subtract from your confidence as it is doing things that make you more confident. But the greatest thing that will make you gradually more confident is doing stuff, is setting goals for yourself, no matter how small, but goals that stretch you a bit, that are not too hard and not too easy, because they have to stretch you. And setting that goal and doing it and rewarding yourself and recognizing yourself for having achieved that in spite of feeling anxious. That's one of the greatest sources of confidence. And you're not going in saying, I can definitely do this. You're going in saying, right, I think I can do this, in spite of the anxiety. And so the words feel slightly fake. So that they're a bit, there's all of these, the posture can feel fake, the words can feel fake, but they work. Okay.
You've just given me a clue to why so many men sit in meetings and do this, because that might be an insight into
primitive dominance signal. Absolutely.
Now you tell me. I had 30 years in business and didn't know what it meant, but thank you. Do we have time for any more? Okay, great. Do you think that confidence comes with age? And at what point in your life did you start to feel?
That's a really great question, because I was not a confident youngster. And I really, I remember giving my first, I was a clinical psychologist for 10 years and then did my PhD later in life. I remember giving my first academic presentation to a kind of high status, group of academics in this new field. And I remember feeling absolutely terrified giving this presentation. And that was me, age 40. So in terms of giving talks, academic talks, I only became confident after I'd done a whole rake of them. But to the extent that one of the virtues of age, if you're lucky, is that you become more, you don't care so much about what other people think of you. Okay, you are who you are, and you know what you can do and what you can't do. You don't worry too much. So I definitely am more confident now in more situations than I would have been in my 20s. But the things I'm confident about have changed at different points in my life. It depends on what you do and be able to do stuff and getting that sense of success in doing them, in spite of the anxiety.
So there are definitely advantages to getting older.
Oh, I love it. No,
you told me before we started how much you love it.
Yeah.
Honestly, Ian, I can't thank you enough. It is a joy and privilege every time we speak to you. I hope you will come back many times and teach us more and more. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but talk to us, and I hope what you've heard tonight really, really helps. Thank you. Have a good day, evening, whatever, and see you again soon. We have a new series coming up for the female lead. I'll tell you all about it next time. Thank you.
Thank you.